Hi, this is Melanie Endert with M&A Leadership Council. Welcome to our webinar, People Analytics and Reporting in M&A. Now I'd like to introduce Jim Jeffries, Chairman of the M&A Leadership Council.
Thanks, Melanie. Welcome, everyone, to another one of our webinars. We have few of these, and the reason we have few of these webinars is because we really only like to endorse those things that come forward in the marketplace that we can present to the M&A community that are either new best practices, new technologies, new techniques, things like that. I think you'll really enjoy today's session on Cruncher, which is a new tool for HR and people analytics. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping things. Number one is that we will be taking questions, and you'll be able to log in your questions during the session by opening the chat area in the bottom right of the drop-down. So please feel free to log in your questions. We'll try to provide 10 minutes or so at the end to handle those things. And I also want to make sure that you know who our guests are today. First of all, and joining us from Amsterdam is Dirk Jonker. Dirk is the co-founder, head of product for Cruncher, and we'll be handling most of the session today. But I also want to introduce Claire Olson, who is a partner with Cruncher here in the U.S. and works with our organization, particularly at our various seminars, such as the Art of M&A for HR Leaders, which is coming up next month. So let's get started if we can. I think the best way to start out, Dirk and Claire, today is to ask one big question, and that is, we all hear a lot about people analytics. Help us understand, and please explain in just a few sentences, what is people analytics?
Sure. So, Jim, people analytics is basically applying analytics to people-related data in order to understand the relationship between people and the business. And by understanding this relationship, it leads to better and more effective decision-making on human capital. So basically puts HR in the driving seat to become a real strategic business partner. And one of the examples is something I won't forget. It was a couple of years ago when I spoke to the global head of HR of a pharmaceutical company, and he put it really in 4 nice words. Are you in control? These were the words. This was a question basically that the supervisory board and the board of management asked this global head of HR on the human capital. And for the record, this company spends about $12 billion every year on people. And that's 33 million a day. And the board of management said, like, I'm not interested to know how many people we have or what is our diversity, but are you sure that that $12 billion that we spend every year is spent wisely, that we promote the right people, that we identify the right people for our senior leadership positions? And I guess you can guess the answer already. He was getting uncomfortable. And data was in many different systems. And so are you in control? Most companies will say no. It's also what the recent Burson report shows.
Well, Dirk, also, to follow up with that, well, can you explain the momentum in the industry? How well accepted is our people analytics today?
Yeah, so it has really picked up over the last few years. And I can see 3 main reasons. The first reason is that people already live in a world of analytics and have expectations. So for example, you order something on Amazon and you want to know when it will be delivered. Or you go on Netflix, and out of all these thousands and thousands of series, it is personalized for you what to see. Or you go online to the Weather Channel and you want to know exactly what is the percentage of rain next week in New York City. So people already have analytics, and that brings expectations to the table when it comes to HR. Second reason is that companies over the last few years have really invested in core HR systems. Systems you all know, the Oracle, the SAP, the Workdays. And that has really helped to make this data available. Last but not least, companies become curious of what you can do with all the data that is being collected nowadays. So new functions arise within the HR domain. Almost every respected company now has HR analytics as a core function within the HR team. And they share success stories on LinkedIn, on social media, on conferences, and that attracts more people and builds momentum. So that's what I see.
So on behalf of Cruncher, you're saying that People Analytics really adds value to the HR M&A deal process.
Absolutely. It can definitely also help the deal process, because it really brings value for companies in change, whether they are changing their org structure, whether they're redesigning policies, reinforcing certain programs, cost reduction programs, reduction in force. Every company in change wants insights, and People Analytics help. So more specifically, in the pre-close process, People Analytics can help to flag risks, and in the post-merger integration work streams, they will provide deep insights on how to merge companies together. But I'll show you some examples in the demo later.
Yeah, I think that's good. You know, during a deal, an M&A deal, there's always a limited amount of data and time. Those are two big drivers. And how do you go about using People Analytics, and how do you deal with the issue of limited data and very short amounts of time to make things happen?
Yeah, that's a great point that you mentioned there, Jim. Many people think that for People Analytics you need data with names and salaries. To be honest, the data that you'll normally find in the deal room is anonymous, and therefore people think you cannot do anything with it. But if you look at certain data that is available, you can already do a lot of things. So for example, if you would have an age or a date of birth, you have some kind of sense of workforce aging issues and where they may arise. If you have gender, you can say something about gender diversity. If you have salaries and maybe some information on where these people sit, so in IT, in finance, or in sales, then you can already make some interesting calculations on direct versus indirect spend. And it's just like with cooking, the more ingredients you have, the more things you can make. But definitely in the typical deal room, where you have some anonymous data, you can already do great stuff.
It's a great list. That's a great menu for people, and areas that would be examples for that. What can you show us for inspiration, say, on leadership and talent planning for the post-merger activities?
Yeah, so let me switch to Cruncher real quick to get you some insights. So the most important thing to start off with is to consolidate the available data from different systems into one repository and validate this data, because as you all know, garbage in, garbage out. Right. Second thing is that after this data has been consolidated and validated, we need to make it accessible. And best practice there is to start basically with your own company. So let me fire up the organization application, where you can see that we present some basic data very clean. So how many people do we have? What are some metrics around workforce aging? What are metrics around diversity and talent, spend, and organization design? Once you have this data available for your own company, then you are able to use filters to make this dashboard more specifically. So for example, I want to see in Europe for the manufacturing plant how many people we have of a certain age, or maybe you know, with less than 9 years in position, who are people manager and have a certain performance status. This helps you to get inside of your current company. Now, you were asking me about how this adds value to the deal process. Now, imagine that you have this machine already up and running for your own company, where you can quickly slice and dice information on how many people do we actually have in certain functional areas. And then you acquire this company. Then you could also implement this Cruncher instance to your acquisition, and you can start making comparisons. How many finance do they have? How many finance do I have? And I can zoom in on detail, even to person level, to find out who these people are and how this helps me with the integration. And no worries, it's all demo data. It's people who do not really exist. Once the deal is closed and you start making business cases to merge these two companies, you may want to look at layers and spans of control to see how layered this organization is. And again, if I loaded this company as a certain legal entity, I could just make quick comparisons to the mother company and the acquisition to really understand how this company is structured, where money is spent, what the trends are on spend and on turnover. And this really gives the post-merger integration workstream a lot of information at their fingertips so that they can talk data on the integration. So these are the typical metrics that you want to look at from an organizational design perspective. Now, you also asked me about leadership and succession. That's actually a really nice topic, less close to my heart, because there you can use a lot of people analytics.
I think that's great. I hate to interrupt you here, but I could just see some the jaws dropping on some of the CFOs we have in the audience, as well as the HR folks out there on that last piece. That's really strong. I'm sorry. Go ahead and speak about the succession.
Sure. Thanks. So what we see a lot lately are these acqui-hires. So the primary objective is to buy skills and expertise of the staff rather than the products or the services that the company provides. So basically, you acquire talent. Then the first thing that you want to do is visualize who this talent pool is. So let me quickly switch over to talent. And there, with very simple data that you might even have in the deal room, you can build a talent risk monitor. And what you see here, all the dots are identified talent by the company, by the new company and the mother company altogether. And on the vertical axis, you would see a risk of loss indication ranging from 0 to 100. 100 being very high risk of loss. On the horizontal axis, you see impact of loss. And this helps you to assess what happens if this top potential actually leaves the company. What is the impact to the company? And so we typically make a data photo, if you will, the moment that the deal is announced. And then you start tracking your top talents because you don't want them to leave. And to prioritize actions, I can just zoom in to those people who have high risk of loss, high impact of loss. And it results in my to-do list for those who I want to maybe give some incentives to stay a bit longer or to help me with the integration. So the type of data that we use for this will be years in position, age, grade, the typical things that you would have in any basic HR system. Now the second thing, why people generally leave just after announcement of the deal is that, imagine that my company was acquired by Deloitte, for example, and I'm here at this top potential, and I'm suddenly part of this larger organization, then I'd still want to have some career perspective. And that is where we get to succession. This really helps the post-merger integration workstream to integrate succession plans between old and new. And
you're really getting into predictive analytics at this point, aren't you?
Well, we are showing via data visualization how networks are connected to each other. And using this data, we can get into some predictive analytics on where leadership is going to. And let me show you one example. On the left-hand side, you would see where the leadership is currently sitting. So for example, leadership in the US, in this demo data set, it's 47 identified. What is their next position? They move to the Netherlands, they stay within the US, or they go to the UK. So this is the first part of where we go predictive. Second part where you can go predictive, and this really will be interesting for the CFO, is where you can say, how much budget do I need on the different workforce scenarios? So what you're seeing here is a workforce planning overview, where you can see under constant demand how my supply of workforce is progressing. So this helps when you need to slim down, or when you want to see how many people you need to recruit, or, and this is where we get into the predictive part, how my total comp needs are evolving over time, how my talent or my female diversity is progressing over time. So this is when we start to enter the predictive arena.
That's really good stuff. Interesting. You know, when we were in Orlando last time, you showed us how to use marketing science on employee preferences. Can you share something on that, or?
Sure. So that's another angle, if you will, to look at people data. So a company can build all kinds of workforce plans, but in order to execute, you need to understand what drives those people that you need in the future. And that is exactly when we get to employee preferences. So what do people actually want? How to build a digital employee value proposition. We have a little survey game that people fill out, and there you start to understand what people want. So this is real data from a set of more than 800 millennials, where you can build a value proposition based on their field of study, for example. So if you need more people in engineering, in math, and in space science background, then this is the type of proposition you want to offer. Now, I know you really like going predictive, Jim, and let me show you something that you can do with marketing science. Because you could say, what if I build 3 different scenarios for all these millennials that I have? How does it look like? And this is why we use cluster analysis. It's the same algorithm that Netflix is using to identify how different people are. And you can see that some people go for salary, but not everybody. Some people like job security, but not everybody. So you could also use this as a culture check when different companies are merging to find out where the resistance will happen and to predict change resistance.
It's really powerful. Very, very interesting stuff. And you know what I'd like to do, Dirk, if we can do this, as we've, Melanie, I think you're pulling up some questions that have been logged in. I'm not sure everybody in the audience has had time to think about questions, but as you are thinking of those, go ahead and log those in, everybody. Let me pull up some questions that have occurred during our workshops from some of our alumni and some of the attendees of some of our workshops who have seen Cruncher. The first one is an obvious one, and this one says, have you used this for M&A, or is it really new? If yes, how did it go, and how did it add value? Dirk? Okay.
It was actually 2 weeks ago that we were called in where one of our clients made an acquisition. And in a matter of 3 days, we implemented Cruncher. And it helped the post-merger integration workstream to bring facts to the table. Who is the leadership team of this new company? How is the company structured? How does it compare to my own company? How much indirect FTE is there, etc. So fast implementation, and it brings value.
Yeah, no doubt. Clara, we haven't heard from you yet. So I think questions are going to arise because we're such a global community, in M&A, and we do so much cross-border kinds of deals. What are the languages? Can you speak to the languages available for this? Are they all in English? And what about currencies and other things? Because as we're monitoring things, they're going to have to be in the currency of the countries involved.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Cruncher right now is primarily in English, and when we do cross-border deals, it's usually in English because that's the common language that's done in cross-border deals, or from my experience, that's the case. Having said that, we're doing a big project in Japan right now, and we're using Japanese characters for input. So we do have multiple language capabilities, even though that we, for cross-border deals, we usually use English. Also on the currency side of things, we can use multiple currencies and transition and do currency exchange as well. So it's very flexible in that aspect.
Okay. Well, here's a question. Culture always comes up. I don't know, certainly in HR, and anybody who's involved in M&A, culture is always a question. So this person asked, related to employee preferences, don't you need to survey the entire organization to determine culture fit? I don't know, Claire, do you have an answer? Can you expand on that?
Sure. If you look at Ed Schein's work at Harvard on organizations and leadership, he says that if you understand an organization's leaders' culture, you basically can figure out about 80% of the overall organizational culture. So what we've done during M&As is we've used the preference scan to scan both leadership teams from the buyer and the seller, and we can get a pretty good idea of if there's a good match or not. And once the deal goes ahead, then we can survey the entire organizations or both organizations and do a compare and contrast and verify what we found with the leadership scans. We found that that's really effective in the past. So using preference for culture is really effective. And going back to the language, those questions can be in any language you determine going into a deal.
Okay, that's interesting. How about this one? These come up and they're quite obvious. We've got more than one question on pricing. Two or three things come out of this pricing question, and that is, how is the price? Is it competitive? Is it difficult? What is the process and speed of implementation? Dirk, I'll throw it back to you to answer that one.
All right. So we're quite transparent on the pricing. It's basically $8 per employee per year. We implement within 6 weeks and therefore don't charge any implementation fee. The process is, as said, the first implementation phase is 6 weeks, and then we have rapid data updates. And with that, I mean, we take a data picture every month from your systems. It's just a simple export. We consolidate the data for you, we validate it, and then make it accessible. And then once it has been implemented, we help you to build these data-driven stories to also help HR to use the system.
You consider it very competitive with other solutions that are out there, I gather.
Yes. We typically see that companies spend about 4 or 5% of what they typically would spend on an HR system on Cruncher. So it's really a nice add-on.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it. I'm very, very impressed. Trying to stay inside our 30-minute time frame, I'm going to give one more question out, and I think that has to be a visionary type question. And Dirk, to you, because you built such a powerful solution here, how do you see the developments in people analytics over the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, that's a really nice question. I would say that artificial intelligence will really take off as companies have more data available, have better quality data available. And that is basically where we start training Cruncher to discover relationships that go far beyond people data. It's using business data, web data, and really to give us some proactive guidance on human capital. Some companies refer to this as cognitive computing. And to close it off, I would say Cruncher will have a seat in the boardroom where everybody can just ask, like, hey, Cruncher, give us a quick update on the human capital, and Cruncher will read out the answer for you.
Well, I really believe that we're going to see that day arrive. Listen, I want to thank both of you, Dirk and Claire, for joining us today. I want to invite everybody that was listening in to gather more information about this great solution. And before I do that, let me do a little advertising very quickly. We've got the Art of M&A Integration coming up in April, in the 19th through the 21st. We're going to be in Orlando at the Hyatt Grand Cypress. 3 days on pure M&A integration best practices. And then for most of you that were on this session today, you're going to be very interested in attending the upcoming Art of M&A for HR Leaders, which we're going to hold in combination and jointly with Willis Towers Watson. That's going to be in May on the 10th and 11th. We'll be holding that at the, the 6th tallest building or the 7th, I think, in the world or something like that. It's certainly the tallest one in this country. The Sears Tower, the Willis Tower, and we've got a great session teed up for that as well. So want you to go to these websites. We'll give you some contact information here right now, and you can go contact Claire or Dirk, or you can contact me or any of the other council people for any further information you might want. Guys, thanks so much for your session today. We look forward to seeing you in Chicago for the HR session. Everyone in the audience, thank you for your attendance. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.